All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you a highly biased, highly abridged history of women's sports. So first thing that you have to think of when you think of the history of women's sports is, again, what's happening in society. So 1919, women in the UK can vote. 1920, women in the US are granted the right to vote. And now magically within a year, the women in the UK, or 2 years, women in the UK are no longer allowed to play soccer, the most popular sport there. In 1928, they're suddenly banned from track and field, any event longer than 200 meters, because any event longer than 200 meters was thought to be too much of a stress on their bodies, and it would cause them to become masculinized, and it would cause them to lose their reproductive health, and it would do all of these horrible things that they had to be protected from. Yeah, exactly. So women were then banned from track and field and soccer in the 1920s. It then goes 40 years before Catherine Switzer enters the Boston Marathon. Again, under a neutral name of KV Switzer, she tries to run. There's very famous pictures of her being dragged off the course or being pulled on the course by one of the Boston Athletic Association members who are trying to uphold the kind of the history and the name of the Boston Marathon by not allowing a woman to compete in it. But she competed fine. She finished the race. She's actually come back. I think it was on the 50th anniversary. She came back about 3 years ago, and she actually reran the race. And again, she did fine, even though she was now much older. So this is bringing into question this idea that it's not possible, or that there's some sort of genetic or limitation that's based on gender, that women shouldn't be allowed to. They should be protected from all of the stresses associated with these highly intense sports. Then what happens in 1972 is that Title IX comes in, and Title IX comes in as the ninth component of the Education Amendments Act. And what it's going to do, as you'll see, is it says that education has to be equal for people of different genders. And so that's really going to have a huge impact. A year later, there's a very famous tennis match between Billie Jean King and Bobby Riggs. Bobby Riggs had been a professional tennis player, then he just was a very how shall we say this nicely? He was just a very outspoken individual who essentially thought very strongly that men were significantly better than women, and anybody could beat a good female tennis player. So he took that on himself, and Billie Jean King beat him in I think it was in the Superdome. So it's in this huge dome stadium that had fully packed stands and it was nationally televised. So it was a huge event. And Billie Jean King actually really felt a lot of stress and a lot of anxiety about having to do this, because again, she was representing this idea of the whole gender, whole sex is going to be affected by how she plays against Bobby Riggs. I put this in here because I think it's a very important thing, is because men who are designing most of the athletic gear were not designing anything that were specific for women. And in 1977, 3 women stitched 2 jock straps together and created the first jog bra. Again, it's come a long way since then, but the idea was that if women were going to be able to participate in sport, that they needed to actually have equipment that was suited for women. We don't just make things smaller to put it onto women. We don't just make things smaller to put it onto kids. We actually have to change what's in it. You can't just take a helmet and make it smaller and put it on a kid, because children have much weaker necks. You have to adapt to a child in the same way. But that was happening already. But in the same way, men weren't designing athletic wear for women that would allow them to compete. And so this I think was a significant event, because now it allows women to actually have this idea that, there's specialized equipment for women to participate in sport. And it now is becoming more and more encouraged and more something that was acceptable for women to participate in sport. In 1984, the women's marathon is added back to the Olympic Games, and Joan Benoit Samuelson ran an incredible race and won that just really impressively. She is an outstanding marathoner, has been an outstanding marathoner since well before then, but now she is still an age group record holder. She's an incredible athlete. And then I added this last one in here in 2019, Camille Herron, I should say. She is notable for a lot of different things. She's a sports scientist. She's an outstanding intellect when it comes to sport. But the reason I put it in here is that she's the world record holder for the 24-hour run. She's also the world record holder for the 100-mile run. And those records are not, she's the world record holder for the women's 24-hour or the women's 100. She is the world record holder for the 24-hour run. She has run further than any other person on earth in 24 hours, males and females combined. So again, this is telling us that even now, when men are training for a lot of things and doing these things, there are specific events that women are going to do better than men. And it just means that what we're seeing is that there wasn't ever something that said a woman can't do something or can do this. What it was is that women, again, like we talked about with the big bang of body types, women are going to have a different body type than men. And as a result, they're going to be suited for different activities than men. So it doesn't mean that, if we go in and we say that if we have women and men and we do powerlifting, that women are going to be as good as men. That's not what we're saying. We're saying that just like if you were to take people from Sudan that we talked about having an ethnic group that's grown up in heat, so really long limbs and very tall people, they're not going to do well in powerlifting either. So it's not about whether you're male or female in those things. It's about whether your body fits the sport that you're competing in.